back to Shat on TV Watchmen, the unofficial podcast companion piece to the hit HBO series Watchmen. I'm one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me is my co-host, Roger Roper.
Time to come out of the tunnel.
And this is our Instacast edition, where we look back on this week's episode of Watchmen and provide our initial response just after watching the episode. This is not scripted. Very few notes here. No research at all. You guys asked for it. You guys wanted an instant take, and we're going to give it to you.
Yeah, and just like the instant, people have been clamoring for the Instacast, and they just want more Shat on TV Watchmen coverage, and they want longer episodes. And I've been getting it on Twitter. We've been getting it on emails. I feel like this episode was exactly what people have wanted. People have been asking us, where's Dr. Manhattan? Is Dr. Manhattan going to come in? Is he just hanging out on Mars? What's going on? When's Dr. Manhattan going to come back? I want Dr. Manhattan. Well, you're going to get fucking Dr. Manhattan. And the more I think about this, like, how did we not fucking see this coming? I was thinking to myself, I was like, Jesus, the whole show up until this point has been littered with the idea of clones, but if they're not clones, then they're, genetic replicas. But in this fucking episode, Lady Trieu calls them clones. So, like, again, how did we not see this coming, that ultimately the villains would be trying to make their own clones of the most powerful being in the universe? I think this episode, more so than other episodes this season, is going to be divisive. I think people are going to like it. And then some people are going to hate it. I think, I don't know if it was you or King B that mentioned that this was the first episode not written by Lindelof. I like how they kind of use Laurie Blake's character to be like, yeah, we've heard this before. We've seen this before. This is typical in a comic book or a hero story where the hero gets to the villain and confronts them, and then they monologue the whole plot and the reasons behind it. She's like, just cut to the shit. She's like, what the fuck are you doing? And then, she's using the old clicker. It's almost a throwback. And I kind of like that. I felt like this was a throwback to like 1950s villains or 1960s villains. And then she pulls out like the 1950s television clicker to drop the trap door. And then when she's down there, she's like, just cut through the bullshit. Don't monologue me. Just tell me what the fuck is happening here. And, and she's like, Keen's like, obviously I'm going to make myself blue. I like how they did do it with a little bit of cynicism, but one of the things that we were talking about on the deep dive last week was, are they going to be able to wrap this show up in 3 episodes? And we were worried that this episode, based on previews, was all going to be about Lady Trieu. And I like how they did a little bit of pulling the rug out from under us. And what's the word? Subverting our expectations. We did get Vietnam, but it was all about Angela's past. And I thought that was kind of neat. Some of the other stuff that didn't work for me, though, and you're not going to get this reference, but people who are fans of Rick and Morty will understand that I feel like Ozymandias has just gone full Rick Sanchez now, where he's sitting almost like Rick did in the, before the Council of Ricks. And they're like, all right, you've been here for 365 days. How do you plead, Rick? And he just farts. You know what I mean? Like, that's just this. And then I think back to like all of what Ozzy has been doing, his entire plan of killing the clones and, hatching them from a lake and throwing himself off a trebuchet. And, and now all I can think of when I look at Ozymandias is Rick Sanchez. For what we were complaining about, though, or what we're making light of, there is some interesting stuff. Like, I did enjoy getting a little bit more backstory in the way that Angela was raised in Vietnam. I really like the idea. And I think the aftermath of Vietnam and how there would be street vendors peddling Dr. Manhattan wares. There would be the Americanization and the fast food restaurants if we had won. And so I liked that. I really enjoyed that. I liked, like you said, they answered some questions. We confirmed that Bien is a clone of the mother of Lady Trieu. We get a little bit of preview of the VLF, the rebels that want to return back to an independent Vietnam. And I think that's going to play more. One thing that I was wrong about is I was assuming Lady Trieu was behind everything. It appears as if, at least for now, she's the hero that's here to save. But answer me this, and again, we'll go back and we'll re-examine this in the deep dive. Were they using the Seventh Kavalry when they've got Laurie Blake tied up in the chair underneath, and she's looking at the big giant Cyclops logo, and Judd Keene is there? Do you see Seventh Kavalry members with some boxes, and it looked like tea? Was that Trieu? That's her technology, right?
So the Seventh Cavalry's plan appears to be use this technology to summon up Dr. Manhattan, somehow like capture him, kill him, and then replace him with a Senator Keene Dr. Manhattan or something along those lines. Not 100% sure. And they're using Lady Trieu's technology to do that.
Sure.
One of my friends, Lydia, messaged me earlier this week and asked, do you think the final showdown at the Millennium Tower, at the Millennium Clock, will be, Lady Trieu and Dr. Manhattan against Ozymandias and the Seventh Kavalry or whatever, some variation of that? And I was like, no, there's no final showdown. There's no super teams. There's no battle lines drawn. This isn't that kind of a show. Now it appears that I might be wrong. It looks like we are headed toward that kind of an Avengers Endgame showdown. And listen, who am I to argue with the show? One other reveal we got from Lady Trieu in this episode seems to be that her father is not a normal person. The reason why I say that is she's raising a clone of her mother so that she can be there when Lady Trieu unveils her build, her Millennium Clock. And she says that she wants her father to be there too, but he's not there yet. So it seems like this would be somebody who's arriving. And those prime candidates seem to be either Ozymandias or Dr. Manhattan. Seems like it's the latter.
Yeah, my money's on, the Manhattan was the first name that came to mind, just because it was also featured in the Peteypedia article of, is Lady Trieu's father Dr. Manhattan, or, who is her father? And I think in the Peteypedia article, it said that she doesn't have a father, but it could also be because, again, in previous Peteypedia articles, it does mention that Adrian Veidt did visit Vietnam a lot in the aftermath. And so I wonder if possibly Veidt could be her father, and that's what she's expecting, is him to return. So yeah, we'll see. What was the deal with the elephant? Now, was that Angela's memories being pumped into the elephant?
Not exactly. Remember that Lady Trieu invented nostalgia, and that drug was eventually banned because of the impact that it had on people with its addictive qualities. And so she had to pay some reparations to people who got hooked on nostalgia.
Right.
And it's reasonable to believe she also had to come up with a way to treat a nostalgia overdose or nostalgia addiction. So the system that they have is called mnemodialysis. And the idea is that you're pumping basically cerebral fluid into the brain to flush out memory clogs that are depicted in the little tutorial that she sees. So that's what's going on there. And I don't know if the show was trying to give us a big shocker of a moment, something that people would talk about on social media with the elephant, but it didn't really work for me. I knew from the second that they showed a tube going into Angela's arm and kept saying that it wouldn't be a good idea to see Will, that it probably wasn't Will that she was hooked up to. It was just kind of a wait and see. And an elephant was cool. I mean, I guess it was okay. What wasn't cool is the locks at Trieu's facility. Now, you think a trillionaire with access to tons of technology would have something better than a nightlight that you could crack with a rock and gain access to the elephant room.
I mean, again, I think this episode more so than what we've seen this season. I mean, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to like it. You're going to have a lot of people who aren't going to like it. So, the great thing about Shat on TV is we're along the ride with you. So if you have ideas, if you have questions, tweet at us. We're on Twitter. Just follow at Shat on TV, or you can tweet Gene and I. I think my handle is at Roger_Roper. Gene, you're at Gene_Lyons_. Tweet at us, email us, give us your thoughts. Again, we read and respond to the best emails of the week on the newsstand. We love also exploring some of your ideas on the deep dive. If you get them in before 4:00 Arizona tomorrow, maybe 2:00 Arizona tomorrow, we can look at some of that. So fun episode. It's still the best thing on television right now.
Right. And one okay episode doesn't ruin a fantastic series for me. There were moments in episode 7 that really were fantastic. When June and Angela meet in Vietnam, Angela's a child, and June, her grandmother, comes for her. It's beautiful. I got emotional, especially that tie-in of knowing that when she was tripping on nostalgia, she was actually spending more time with her grandmother, who she had so little time with to begin with. That was absolutely gorgeous. And also, I should say, the Dr. Manhattan thing did not just come out of the blue. Several people wrote in and pointed out things about Cal that reminded them of Dr. Manhattan, the way he was cool under pressure, his atheism, and expression of that toward the children. The signs were there. It just feels very off topic for this show.
The cool thing about this episode, though, was we did get the reason why she chose Sister Night, and I thought that was kind of a badass way. You know, kind of the inspiration was the blaxploitation films of the 70s. You know, being that powerful black character that she looked up to, that was, you know, she's like, oh, I look like her. And, you know, this was a movie that was probably a little bit, you know, beyond her age. But again, there's some cool stuff there. But looking forward, I unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to make the deep dive. I'm flying back from Florida, but I'll send some thoughts. And if you guys use them great. If not, I'll be looking forward to hearing the episode.
Yeah, and if you thought we were harsh on this episode, just wait till the King Bee gets to weigh in tomorrow.
Jeez.
Well, that concludes this week's episode of Shat on TV Watchmen. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat on TV. On Facebook, just search for Shat on TV Podcast. The website is shatontv.com, where you can see all of the TV shows that we cover, check our backlog of letters, and write to us at hosts@shatontv.com. Get your ideas in now. If there's something you'd like us to talk about on the deep dive, we'll try to get to it. Wherever fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pandora, Spotify, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by iTunes, please leave a review. That helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, the King Bee and Roger Roper, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us Tuesday for the deep dive of episode 7 of Watchmen, An Almost Religious Awe.